Necessarily of this station, its management, or other advertisers. When was the last time you felt inspired? Are you ready to take your passions to make a difference while living a life you truly love? Your host, Katana Abbott, who is a life and legacy wealth coach and certified financial planner, searches the world to bring you experts in the field of personal and professional growth, wealth creation, and mind, body, and spirit. So grab a cup of coffee and take that quantum leap you've been waiting for. Smart Women Talk Radio, the link to live with purpose, passion, and prosperity.
Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world for smart women and a few good men, including best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So we talk about things like money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. So our theme this month is turning your passion into profit. And today I am interviewing book coach and author Lisa Tenner about how to turn your knowledge and your story into profit. So today we're going to talk about how to determine, first of all, should you even write a book? The 4 things really important to clarify before you start writing a book, and ways to get into a state of creativity, because we all are aware we've experienced or we've heard of this thing called writer's block. So first, before I introduce you to Lisa, I just want to share a little tip. Is your goal to retire someday to a life of leisure, or do you think you're going to work forever? What if you could do something you love and that you're great at and make money at it too? Would it even be considered work anymore? So as a midlife retirement coach, I think the ideal situation when you get to retirement is to be able to turn your passion into profit. I just love this topic. Many women who are in midlife are looking to take their wisdom, their experience, and even their mistakes and turn those into a business, and what I call the expert industry. The expert industry is where you are teaching and inspiring others through speaking, training, coaching, consulting, and writing. So I've seen too many women try to do this on their own when there's such an easier way. John Maxwell says it takes 10 years or 10,000 hours to become an expert in your field. And so book writing is no different. So there's a right way and a wrong way. And a book is really a business. And if you want it to be successful, you want to find someone that you can learn from. So John Maxwell says you can shorten the curve by finding a coach and following them. And that's why I brought Lisa to you today, because she's been in this industry for 25 years. So let me tell you a little bit about Lisa. She's been awarded the Silver Stevie Award for Mentor Coach of the Year. She specializes in helping experts, enlightened entrepreneurs, and others write and publish compelling how-to books, self-help books, and memoirs, and taking them through her unique step-by-step process. So she teaches, she's on the faculty of the Harvard Medical School's publishing course. She participates in a bunch of national writers conferences, and she also has her award-winning Bring Your Book to Life program, which I hope she tells us about today. Her clients have signed 5- and 6-figure publishing deals with Random House, HarperCollins, Simon & Schuster, Hachette, and many others, while others have successfully self-published and won awards, including the Nautilus winners. So Lisa, thank you so much for being here with us today. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Katana. It's my absolute pleasure to be here and talk about my favorite subject.
Oh, yes, yes. So this idea of writing a book, I just shared so much about you, but I had done a lot of research about you before having you come and be my guest, and you are right. I just touched a very small part of all the things you've actually done. So can you briefly share with us how you came into this arena of being a writing coach?
Sure. I'll try to give you the short version of it. But it was sort of one of these organic things. Ever since I was a little kid, I thought I'd be a writer. And yet, I wasn't the biggest reader because I read really slowly, which makes for a good editor because I really hear every word. But it didn't make for a very prolific reader until maybe high school. And I'm still slow. But I have two parents who loved books and instilled that in me, especially as I got older, and did always have a feeling I'd do that. And then I went to MIT and I worked in corporate world for a while. And then I just had this idea for a book. And it was after having an illness and recovering and the healing process and discovering something called polarity therapy, which helped me immensely and was so fascinating. And out of that stemmed this idea for a book, The Ultimate Guide to Transforming Anger. And that was a kind of a long process from the idea of it to actually getting a traditional publishing deal. I worked with two co-authors eventually, and it was an amazing experience. But after that, I realized I didn't enjoy working with people's anger so much, even when it was sort of to unearth the message behind it and how to communicate in a healthy way and creatively and tapping into our intuition. It just really became clear that wasn't my path, and yet I needed to find something. And I had quit the nonprofit world and knew that that was just too demanding now that I had my first child. So it took a little while, but I got this sense to teach the steps I took to get in the zone to write. And I started with that, and people started coming to me because they wanted to publish their books and had known that I had or found out I had. So, my people started coming to me, and it wasn't a case necessarily of my identifying my target market. They identified themselves. And then I was very fortunate. My publicist, Rusty Shelton, served on the Harvard Medical School publishing course, and he asked the course director, Julie Silver, Dr. Julie Silver, do you need any more writing coaches? And she said, I do. And he recommended me, and that was, well over a dozen years ago. It was a long time ago. And ever since, I've been on the faculty of that course, which has been an immense blessing, and also so wonderful for the kinds of people I've been able to meet and get to know over the years, the agents and publishers who come to the course every year, and these just amazing people in the health profession who are doing very cutting edge research or have these incredible insights and have no idea how to turn that into a book. So that's sort of, believe it or not, that was the short version.
So that's actually how you got started. And what a prestigious way to get started, really, to be aligned with that kind of an organization.
Yes, although I will say there were a few years of really struggling financially, and all the things that you teach the people through Smart Women are the things I needed to learn. And I wish I'd known about you then, and because there is so much value that you offer that I didn't know back then, and I really had to learn step by step how to build a business from nothing and how to figure out what that business was.
So you just said something, because I did take a class on book writing, and I did a book proposal. I went to the LA Book Expo, and my book was called Midlife Millionaire, and I wrote the book proposal, and I didn't know that the Book Expo, this is so funny, was for them to release the new books to the public. I thought it was for people like me to pitch.
Wow.
Which is a good thing because I didn't know any better. And I got all these, publishers that wanted to look at my book proposal. And so the thing that I want to point out, that the idea of writing a book, it is a business, right?
It absolutely is. And of my clients who do the best with their books, they're the ones who run it as a business. And the book is part of that whole business plan. And and so the book supports other income producing activities, not just like book sales where you might make $1 if it's traditionally published per book, and a few dollars per book if it's self-published. But instead, it's serving other income producing aspects of the business. And then in turn, those income producing aspects help sell more books. And it's this beautiful cycle that supports and makes it sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to have you tell us all about this. But you said there's 3 questions to ask before you start writing a book, because I want people to take notes. Make sure you get your pens out. This is so important.
And there are probably more questions you can ask too, but 3 really important questions are, how committed am I to this? Am I willing to take something off my plate to make the time and space for this book? Because if not, don't even start, right? It's you really want to ask yourself how committed and passionate you are. And then the next is there a need for this? And sometimes people will say, oh, you should write a book, but really ask yourself, is there a need for this? And it doesn't have to mean that your book is going to be, solving world hunger. It could be a humorous book. Everybody needs some humor in their lives, right?
Right.
So but do ask yourself, is there a need for this? And then, the other is, can I sustain the passion about this? Am I going to be excited? The book comes out 1 or 2 or 3 years from now. Am I going to be excited to be out there promoting this book? Is it still going to be relevant? So you really want to think of it in terms of that long-term plan and your passion around it.
So when someone's publishing, there is this big long turnaround time. I mean, it takes a long time to get.
For traditional publishing. For self-publishing, it can be a lot quicker. And I've had clients who've self-published very quickly, within a month or 2 of having their book complete, the writing complete and edited and proofread, to then, doing all the cover and design and marketing to bring it out. So that can be quick if you're self-publishing. And the wonderful thing about self-publishing too, depending on how you choose to do it, but if you did it, let's say with Kindle Direct on Amazon, you can update that at any time. So it's not like a traditional publisher where you've got that one shot and then, it could be many years before you can update it, unless it's like that particular kind of book that needs to be updated every year or 2. But otherwise, you don't have so many chances to make changes.
Yeah.
So there's some value in self-publishing too.
So, okay, so we're going to talk about that, but how would somebody get started? Do you want to start here and tell us, like, how would you get started with this whole concept? You have a dream, you have an idea.
I always say get started with your vision statement. Create a vision statement, because
I'm taking notes, by the way.
Sorry?
I said I'm taking notes.
Oh, good. But as soon as you have that vision, it's going to help guide all the decisions you make about the book. So it's really important to start there. The other wonderful thing about a vision statement is that it helps you stay motivated. And you could be reading that vision statement once or twice a day, really staying close to it. And, maybe the vision statement will even change a little as you maybe get feedback from your potential readers, or you have new insights into your work based on a conversation with a client, and suddenly the book changes and the vision changes a little. And that's a wonderful thing. That's not a bad thing. But to have that vision statement is going to be a really powerful tool for you in so many ways. So that's where I say to start. And the vision really is about, how is this book going to affect your life and your business? Maybe it's to start a new business. Maybe it's to support an existing business. Maybe it's just to augment what you're doing. I have a friend, Gail Lofson. I was just speaking to her this morning, and she has a wonderful job where she creates, she's the event planner for the boat show in Newport, but also she has this side business where she does lots of speaking about leadership and about time management, and actually she has a book, but maybe it's that you want to do your current job and you want to have this side business as a speaker, and her company actually lets her do that, which is pretty awesome. So she's able to take time off and have a very flexible work schedule. But
and what you just said, that comment though about I call it a plan B, and about we have 80% of our listeners and people in our community are over 40, and 68% are over 50. And so we have so many women that have all this knowledge and wisdom, and they've been taking care of everyone else and doing what everyone else wants. That's so many of them want to go into this expert industry. And so that what you just said was so important. Going in with a plan B and taking this, you can create income doing something you absolutely love in the second half of your life if you write a book, because the book can also turn into speaking and all kind, programs, and I'm going to let you share that. But it's an exciting thing to start with, because don't you get yourself organized? You start with this vision statement, and then you get very organized with everything you want to do.
Yeah, and so the vision is about like what it's going to do for you and your business, but it also is about what it's going to do for your readers, of course, right? I bet every one of your listeners wants to make a difference in the world for people, and the vision helps you clarify who those people are and what that difference is. And then the other piece is really, how is the book going to impact community or even the world? And so those are the pieces that might come into vision statement. You might also bring into vision statement sort of qualities for the experience and process. So it might be like you want your book to be playful or entertaining or nurturing or scientifically based. All of those things would be things that you want your vision statement to capture. And yet a good vision statement, I think, is tight, right? It's not like 4 pages long. It's going to be short because you're going to read it every day, I hope.
Well, so can you give us a sample of the vision statement, what it would sound like, or is it just too long? I mean, can there be like a concise one, or is it you say you don't want it too long? But
yeah, sure. I'm gonna do this like from memory, so we'll see how it goes. But six-figure writer helps writers. Writers and aspiring authors to make a great living doing the writing they love and bring their work into the world in a financially abundant way or something like that. So maybe I'd add something like bigger picture. Well, that is kind of big picture too. So that would be an example where we're kind of addressing, and then it would say, and puts me as an expert for blah, 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 something like that. So that would address like all the different issues. Or it might be, leads to 20 speaking gigs a year as a keynote speaker. I could like put in whatever are the pieces for the personal part.
Now, the vision statement, is that something personal for the author, or because I believe everyone should be doing a book proposal, even if they're going to self-publish, but is the vision statement part of that, or does it go into it somewhere else?
The vision statement really is for your personal use, but when you're working on a proposal, those pieces will naturally fit into it, and they'll help inform it, because then when you're writing the market section for the book, you have that clarity about who the core market is, and that's going to be your primary market. And then you can also address secondary markets for the book in your book proposal. But it does help identify aspects of the proposal, certainly.
So how does someone go about actually creating that vision statement? Are there steps to it that they would take?
Yeah, you would answer those questions. What do I want to happen in my own life and business? What do I hope my readers will get out of it? Who are my readers?
Okay, that's the step you're going.
So basically, answer those questions, and then you put it together. And you want to, once you edit it, you want it to be tight, so take out anything that's sort of extraneous, and you want it to be in present tense, as if it's already happening, because that's really powerful when you read it to yourself and it's like it's already happening, right? Six-figure writer helps writers do this. And you could even say, and my readers tell me blah, 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 or every time I speak, I hear blah, blah, your book has changed my life. You know, you can put in these things that'll really inspire you.
Okay, it's to keep you inspired. And how many people actually get up, you know, in the middle of the night or work into late hours? Have you worked with clients, and can you tell us some stories about how they keep themselves going and motivated, who have busy schedules, for example?
Sure. And actually, I have a funny story about getting up in the middle of the night, because a lot of times I'll encourage writers, you know, why don't you go to bed early and then wake up an hour early and write first thing? Because that's, you know, you've got that creative subconscious mind supporting you really well at that time of day, or often, and everybody's different. But so we had somebody in class, and she said, I just keep waking up at 3 in the morning with these ideas. And as we talked, I said, you know, I think that what's happening is you're not creating that fallow space. Your work life is so busy and full that you're not creating the fallow space. So, you know, even when you sit down to write, she was sitting down to write sometimes and the writing wasn't coming, but then she'd wake up at 3 in the morning. I said, create a little more space in your day. Take something out and go for a walk. Do those activities that slow you down before you write, you know, and that replenish you and refresh your energy. And when she did that, she wasn't waking up in the middle of the night anymore. So, so ideally,
do a lot of people do that? Do they wake up in the middle of the night and write? Because I hear they do.
Yeah,
or
some
like,
people do. And you know what? Everybody's different, so I'm not going to say it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But if it's consistent, you know, it's not the healthiest thing. And you might look at, am I creating the space in my regular day so that my creativity can come forth? And it doesn't just mean saying, okay, I'm going to 3 days a week schedule a half hour, an hour to write, because it may be that you also need to take time before that to replenish your energy. So I would think about it as a more, or, you know, kind of an ecosystem for writing. It's not just about, you know, kind of those 3 hours or 10 hours you've scheduled to write. It's also about, you know, how you're living your life to support that, I think. Yeah. But beginning of the day is often a really nice time to write. It is important to think about, like, how am I going to make that time? So a lot of the people I work with, you know, are entrepreneurs. They might be coaches, they might be healthcare professionals, therapists, consultants, but they don't have a lot of time. And so it really is about saying, how am I going to make this at least one of my priorities? Mm-hmm. And the people who don't do that, you know, quickly the book just, you know, it's not sustainable if they haven't done that. So that's the biggest thing is, you know, what am I going to take off my plate? So I had somebody in my Bring Your Book to Life program who we started talking just before class began, and she had signed up for the class. But then she was telling me, oh, there's this big fundraiser coming up, and I'm the head of the fundraising committee. And I mean, it was just so clear to me that she wasn't going to have any time to write her book. So I said, well, your first assignment before class begins is to find your replacement on that fundraising committee and train that person. And she did that and was able to write a first draft in the 8-week class. So, so, you know, it works, but you really got to make that clear, you know, yes, these are the times I'm going to write. I'm going to keep it sacred, right? You've really got to make that clear commitment, and you've also got to figure out, you know, how am I going to clear that space? Where's that time coming from?
You know, one of the things that that I teach and that, you know, I practice. I have practiced this for 20 years, and I sold my financial planning practice in 2007. They still follow it, and I call it a perfect lifetime system. So it is so aligned with what you're talking about making the time, because what I found is I break my days into perfect days, prep days, and power days. So people can think about this. And the first thing you want to do is what we talked about, what we're talking about next month, self-care. You put yourself on the top of the list, so you book your perfect days. And I have two. My perfect days are Saturday and Sunday. And that is when I am, doing things that bring me joy. You know, if writing brings me joy, I might write. But it's when you are rejuvenating yourself and doing fun things and things with your family and friends to keep your energy level up and your health up. And so those would be vacation times, but you block all those things in your calendar for the whole year in advance. So like your vacation time and everything.
Wow.
So you put yourself first, and then you do your prep days. And the prep days are when you're cleaning up messes, getting organized, delegating. Like right now, I've got to get rid of my credenza because I'm putting a Murphy bed in my office here.
Mhm.
And so I have to book that time and get that done. Getting organized it's like one of the most important things you can do, because you're cleaning up messes so that you can have really effective power days. So you will book more prep days in the beginning. So my prep days are Monday and Friday. And if you go to my calendar at, talkwithkatana.com, if you look at it, I only have 2 days a week people can book with me, because Monday and Friday are my prep days. And it's when I'm getting organized for the week. I don't have to ever look at my calendar because I don't ever have an appointment on a Monday. And it's so refreshing, and then on Fridays, I'm finishing up everything. That's when I do my bookkeeping. And it really gives me permission, and freedom, and I control my calendar. Okay,
Wow,
so.
I just took notes. I'm going to try that. I love it.
Okay, great. And I've got to put an article on my website with it. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, it's always been like this, are my power days. So if you book all your perfect days and your prep days in advance, you end up with, let's say, 3 days a week. And I remember one of my coaches, he only worked 3 weeks out of the month, and then took a week off.
Oh yeah, I had a coach who did that too.
Yeah. And so you add up all those, so let's say 3 days a week, and let's say you work 4, though. There's 12 days a month, and then you say, well, I'm only going to work 50 or 40 weeks, right? You add those up, and then you say, I want to make X amount of money, and you divide those hours into how much you want to make, and you're going to get your hourly rate.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great.
How powerful. So those power days are when you are your money days, right? And so my Wednesday, so Tuesday and Thursday, I see clients, I'll go out, I'll do a Zoom, work on a plan. But I'm mostly seeing people and working on projects. Wednesday is my writing day, because I'm in this expert industry, I guess you would call it, teaching. You have to have a full day blocked out for writing in this kind of a business. And what's really freeing about this, Lisa, and maybe you can share this with your people, is it gives you permission not only to control your calendar, but if you know that you're not doing like bookkeeping and then having a client and then having to go do this, and what you do is you get in the zone. So you got a whole day just writing, no appointments. You don't even have to take phone calls that day if you don't want to. So I just wanted to share that, but I get so excited when I know Wednesday's coming, because it's a creative day. And I make sure I go out in nature, like you said, go for a bike ride. So, so I just shared that, and it really, really does work.
It's really helpful. And, I want to address something you said, because I think it's so important. And that is, if you schedule a full day for writing, most people are going to need to think more deeply than just, that's my writing day, because I find if people schedule a whole day, it's overwhelming. Or else they say, oh, well, first I'll do a few things because, and then I'll write later. So it's really important to schedule out that day. And I love what you said about being in nature. Nature, I think, is one of the best things you can do to support your writing. Excuse me.
You can even take the desk outside. I mean, I have a table out here in the summertime. I will sit out there. Yeah. But you're right. And I have a bunch of little projects. I couldn't imagine just writing straight for 8 hours on a book. But
right. Yeah. Right. And most people are good. Yes. If it's a book, most people are going to need some breaks. So it's just important to think through, okay, I can write in 2-hour spurts, and then I'll take a break and walk, and another 2-hour spurt, and then I'll make lunch, and then another 2-hour spurt, just to really think how you're going to do that. And the other thing I say is experiment. So try the one-day thing. If that doesn't work, maybe you want to try writing every morning, 5 days a week. And see what works for you, because everybody is different. But I do love this idea of organizing your life around these 3 principles. That's so empowering.
Yeah, yeah. It feels so refreshing to have these different types of days, because that's one thing that people would tell me is they just feel so overwhelmed because they have this to-do list and every day they try to tackle it. Well, this way you can look at your to-do list, get your calendar out, and I always say don't put more than 3 items per day, you know, so then you can hopefully accomplish them and go get a new one if you need it.
Right, right.
So, but you know, I think that's beautiful, the idea of writing and then taking a break, maybe setting a timer. I remember a class that I taught with another woman, and that was one of the ideas, was to set the timer and have a timer for 30 minutes, you know, or 45, but to get up and stretch or get outside, so, and take a little break, and or get a, you know, refreshment. Because I mean, how many times did we get through the day and we haven't even gone to the bathroom or got a drink?
Right.
You know, you just get in that zone and then you're totally wiped out, right? You can't be creative when you're like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what are you said there's 4 things to clarify. And you wrote an article about it on the Smart Women blog too, before you start writing the book. Is that what you want to share right now?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I have to admit, I can't remember the blog post, so I may say a different form, but hopefully it'll be the same. But some of the things you want to clarify, you know, before writing the book certainly is, you know, what's my goal here? What's my vision and my goal? So, you know, that comes back to that vision statement. And then, you know, who am I writing for? It's really important to know who you're writing for, because that's going to affect all the choices you make, you know, the tone, the content, what goes in it, what doesn't go in it, the structure of it, the features of the book, all of that's going to be based on who this is for, right? And what their problem is that you're solving. You also really need to be clear about, you know, how you're going to make this happen. And that can be the times that you're going to write and how much time you're going to put into it, like we talked about, what you take off your plate. And also that can include, you know, I'm going to work with a coach so I have accountability and support and guidance, right? Or I'm going to take a course. But, you know, how am I going to make this happen? Or maybe it's, you know what, I'm going to write a first draft and then I'm going to hire an editor. But that how is, you know, an important piece. And then let's see, I might have combined some, but yeah, the structure. The other thing is the structure. So you really do want to be clear. Now the structure can change, and that's not a problem. But I find that if somebody doesn't work from structure and they're just kind of writing lots of stuff and figuring they'll put it together later, it takes so much more time and effort. And often a lot of the pieces they thought would go into the book just don't fit. So it's much easier to work from a structure, even if that structure ends up changing somewhat. Work from a structure from the beginning and get clear about, you know, what are the chapters, and even within a chapter, what are the different bullet points of what I want to address. And you might even have a template for each chapter, especially with a nonfiction book that's more prescriptive, like a business book or a how-to or self-help book. It's great to have some kind of template of what each chapter looks like. Now, you know, it might be if you have 5 steps, all the chapters that are the steps look similar, but then the final chapter might be a little different because it's more about where to go from here, and that's fine. But the more you have that structure thought out, how much easier is it going to be when you actually start writing and each piece is mapped out for you because you mapped it out. And actually, maybe that's a good time to point out what's behind me. I probably shouldn't have had that curtain open, because I think it's making it so white it's made me darker than usual, so I apologize. But behind me is my chart for my current book, and you'll see the orange is, there's a big orange for each chapter, and then the little yellow is the chapter number. The pink is the story that the chapter begins with. The bigger yellow is below that is let's see if I get this right, is the practice that the chapter introduces, and then the little orange I see it at my left, but I'm not sure how it shows up on the screen. Yeah, I think it's the left. But the little orange is the writing prompts, and then the blue is kind of some takeaways. So, and then the what's that other orange? The other orange is yeah, just some notes about sort of themes in the chapter. So you can do that with any book, and it really helps. One of the things I did was I created this, and then I started to move it around, right? You can say, you know, this exercise doesn't really fit here. I wonder where it would go better, and what might fit here better. And so you start to move things around, and something like that is really helpful to see it.
So would it make sense to sit down and, I mean, I love that idea, you know,
Yeah.
with the board and everything. But does it make sense to sit down and do like like the table of contents, so you can, you know, kind of block it out with, you know, how many parts are there, how many chapters do I want, what are the topics, and because that's how I would think of doing it. Do you do that first, or do the board first?
It's really a matter of preference. I usually have people, I used to have them use color-coded index cards and do that first. Kind of, these are the things that I want to put into the book, and therefore, you know, let me figure out where they fit. But I actually, I have an introductory sort of quick start to kickstart your book, and it's a program to really do those first steps that we're talking about. And I have like 7 different ways to use those index cards to create your table of contents. And one is to do that table of contents first and then put the cards in. So it really depends on the particular material. And if you've been teaching this material and you already have 7 steps, then it would be silly not to do your table of contents first, right? Because you've already got that.
Oh, I
And
see.
then it's a matter more of, yeah, filling it out with this. And to be honest, even though I usually have people do their index cards first and create this first, I only had a few chapters in mind when I started my book, and I just knew that the book was going to come organically, like the stories. And so I had a list of some exercises, but I didn't have this to begin with, because my book was more, you know, it wasn't exactly steps. It was more, you know, a bunch of different ways to get into creative space, to write in that zone.
Right.
So I, you know, basically wrote a first draft, and then I made this, and then I moved things around with this. So, you know, every book can be different.
Yeah.
There's not one way to do it, but this is one way, you know, this is one possibility.
I have a really important question for you.
Yeah.
Do your people tell you that when they write the book, all of a sudden, like, whatever they're doing becomes easier, and they now understand it better? They can create a program now. Every chapter becomes a possible speech, or, I mean, like, it must give people clarity if they do it right, and confidence.
Yes, I hear that a lot, especially from people who, you know, were doing a lot of good work, but they didn't feel like they had systematized it, or, you know, kind of had that big picture view of what it all was. Like, suddenly everything fits together and it feels like more of a system, and is more of a system. So yeah, I do hear that a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I would think that. So I did do a really formal book proposal, but it was during the 2009, it was right after the 2009 crash, and it was called Midlife Millionaires. And it was for women only. And the publishers wanted bigger audience. And, you know, the topic, even the millionaires were feeling poor back then. And I ended up shelving it and just doing a program instead. And you know what, now I'm, you know, looking at using that again, maybe not even that title, but it's like 10 years later, 2010, right? And it's like, wow, over the last 10 years, I've learned so much more. And so you were talking about the vision statement, like my excitement. Back then it was more of a push. Now it's more of a pull. Have you found that people may have started something and then once they have an experience or, they've got more time in it, like it just, they can't stop it. It has to happen.
Yes, absolutely. But I do think that pull energy is something we can always tap into. So I often in classes will say, imagine that book is already written and it's pulling you towards it rather than you trying to make it happen. It's pulling you towards it. And we try to work with that energy of that magnetism. I think it really helps, especially when somebody has this idea in their mind, writing a book is going to be so hard. If you have that in mind, that's not going to help. So if you shift that thinking, it really makes a difference.
What about making a book cover and putting it in some place where you can see it? What about that?
Yes, I think that's great. I think that's great. It's, sometimes people will put a book cover on their website though. And if you're looking for a traditional book deal, that's confusing because the publisher thinks you've already self-published. And so I wouldn't do that.
For yourself though.
If you're traditionally publishing, but if you're self-publishing, you can even start to put it out there. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely for yourself. I think it's really inspiring, and I've done that with the book I'm working on now.
So, how important is editing?
Very, very important. And I will say it. It varies book to book and author to author. But there are different phases of editing, and the first phase is developmental editing, and that's sort of taking that first draft and saying, okay, what really goes where? Where does the flow kind of break down, or is there something missing here, or do parts of it need to move? So that big picture piece, right? Or are there features that might work in every chapter that I didn't think of before? So those big picture things is the developmental edit. And then you might do more than one of those depending on how complex the book is. But usually one of those. And then you would do some line editing. You would really edit everything for, where is it confusing? Where does the reader get bored? Where does the reader need more, or where could I make it juicier or more compelling? What else? And then there's certainly, grammar and punctuation, and those things can come in a line edit. They can also come in at the end in proofreading. Excuse me, I feel like I'm about to sneeze.
It's okay, you can sneeze.
but that so they're really, different phases of editing, and they're all important. Because even that proofreading stage, if you have some errors, it does affect your credibility with your readers. And especially if those are educated readers, they're going to think, well, if you don't, edit this properly, what, how good can you be?
Right. I know. Yeah. So what are publishers and even agents looking for?
Well, they're looking to sell a lot of books, right? Because that's how they make money, and how their companies make money. And so they also want to discover books they feel passionate about. So, there are both of those things going on. But when it comes to selling a lot of books, one thing they're going to look at, especially when we talk about books by experts, right? These more prescriptive books, they are looking for that you have a large audience already, that you're already reaching people who will buy this book, right? Because that's going to be the biggest boost, is people who already know you and want your book. And so that's important to them.
And what's a large audience?
It really varies. So I had a client where the agent was interested, but she said, I want you to be reaching at least 100,000 people a year. They don't all have to be on the mailing list, but in your speaking and all these pieces, we want it to be 100,000. For a diet book, it's going to be much more. For a lot of my clients, it's much less. A lot of my clients don't have a huge platform, but they'll bring other things to the table. It might be the the forward writer. It might be that they have a very engaged audience, that opens all of their emails and buys from them, and other things that they can demonstrate. And a big one is if you can do bulk sales, if you can pre-sell books and you have a commitment that this company is going to buy 1,000 and this company is going to buy 1,000 and this one's going to buy 1,000. Well, that's 3,000 books that you've already pre-sold. Now that'll be written into your contract, so you're responsible for those sales. So you do want to make sure they're really committed to buying those books. But that can really help you sell a lot more books, and publishers love to see that. So they want to know they're going to sell books. So one of them is your reach. Another is that there's a need for this book and that it's fresh, right? Maybe you're including very new evidence-based research that's going to be really powerful, or you offer a very new perspective on a popular problem, or maybe it's your voice that's so fresh, right? So there are different ways of being fresh, but fresh is important. That
That's
this
a good
isn't.
thing to know.
Yeah, and then I would say, that there's a good size market. So the bigger the publisher, the more they want to see a really big market. Smaller publishers might be very happy with a very niche market that they think, they can that you and me can sell in that defined niche. So a good example might be like a recovery book, right? So Central Recovery Press is a small publisher, but they're looking to sell in that particular niche of recovery. So, it doesn't have to necessarily be as big an audience, but it's an audience that buys books. It's an audience that's hungry for an answer to their problems, right?
So do the publishers and agents have way more people coming to them than they need, or they do? Okay, because they have to constantly be publishing new books. Think about this.
Yeah. Yeah, but and some publishers, that's why they'll only look at submissions from agents and not just from anybody. And other publishers.
How I did, went around and talked to all the publishers, and they gave me the name of their acquisitions editor because I didn't know any better.
That's fantastic. Well, also because agents need to have a sense that there's going to be a good size advance and royalties for them to make enough money on the book. But on the other hand, a publisher might be very interested in a book even if the advance is small. So sometimes it's not big enough for an agent, but I'm pretty sure we have a really good chance of getting a book deal. So then I will contact acquisitions editors directly, and that's how the client gets published. So
now, are you considered an agent too, or
no,
you work with agents?
But I do have some, I work with agents, and I do have some relationships directly with some publishers. And also a client can, as long as the submissions process is that you can go directly. And often there is that opportunity because of the reason that I said, is that it might not be big enough a platform for an agent, but it could be fine for the publisher. Because the agent, if there's only going to be $1,000 advance, an agent just can't put all that energy and time into it where they're going to get $150 when they sell that book.
Are these publishers, because I hear so many people self-publishing or going to these glamour press, are people really getting, publishing deals? I know people like Barbara Houston, she still gets I deals because she's well known, but how difficult is it, and how common is it to get a publishing deal?
I still have clients getting deals that I haven't had a six-figure deal this year, but I did have in the past year. I've had clients getting like a $30,000 advance, or so they're still getting some advances, but it's certainly gotten harder. And now that was all pre-COVID-19. So right now, I think things are very up in the air, and I don't think we know exactly where publishing's going. So it's on my list.
To go speaking, and there's no audience. One of my friends is a speaker, and all her gigs got canceled, and she sells her books at the gigs.
Right, and so there, she needs to think about new ways to reach her audience, which might be Zoom, podcasting, blogging, but getting creative about some of those things. But certainly people are looking even more than ever for solutions to their problems, for entertainment, for ways to fill their day that are fulfilling. So there's definitely a need, but one does have to think about, how are you going to reach people?
Well, we only have a few minutes left. I want to make sure you tell us about your program. I believe you have a program coming up.
This is a great question. So I just finished teaching Bring Your Book to Life. I teach it once a year. And
say it again, what it's called?
Yeah, Bring Your Book to Life.
I love that. I love it.
So in 8 to 12 weeks, you do that pre-work we talked about of getting clear on the book concept and structure, and then that's like in 4 weeks, and then or it could be shorter if needed too, but anywhere between 1 and 4 weeks, and then 8 weeks of writing like a chapter a week, writing a first draft. So we're just finishing that up. I actually added a few bonus weeks because I think people were so hit hard by the pandemic that there were some weeks where people just weren't that productive. Some of the people in the class are like, we had a hospital COO and someone else is in psychiatry at a hospital who had to start a whole unit for psychiatry and COVID. So, people were not as productive. So I just have extended the class quite a few weeks to make sure that they're able to really.
Yeah, you're coughing.
Oh, right.
I know every time we cough, it's like, oh no.
Yeah, no, I was outside right before I went for a walk, and I think it was some of the pollen. But so that I'm probably not teaching that again till next year. But I do have coaching programs regularly, and I am planning to do something a little different. But I'm not sure exactly when. So if people are interested, they should just email me. But I think it's going to be like maybe 2 days a month where we write on the call. So I will do some of these practices that are in my book to help people get in that writing zone, and then we do some writing on the call, and we may share a little bit afterwards. But I haven't figured out exactly when. I'm really trying to listen to my intuition on this. I think for me, a lot of this whole thing with the pandemic has been about really going within and not being so busy, right? And really being mindful. So I'm not rushing into that class. I'm kind of waiting to see when the timing feels right. So it might be in a few weeks and it might be a few months. I'm not totally sure, but if people write to me, I can.
Okay, so tell them your website and also how to write to you and how to follow you.
So lisatenor.com. It's LISAT as in Tom, EN as in Nancy, ER.com. And my email is lisa@lisatenor.com. There's a free course that's right on the homepage of the website, and people should feel free, and maybe you'll have a link, but people can sign up for that, and that can get you started as well.
Well, I am just so thrilled to have you come and share this. I mean, you really shared so much with us.
Thank you. Well, it's my delight, and it's so fun to speak with you, Katana, because you've been through it and you know what it takes to write a book and what makes it work.
Yes, and now I'm doing these little ebooks, but I hope to do this other book I have in mind coming up. So I want to thank you again, and I know we have some other projects we're talking about together. So
yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah, so people will be hearing more from you. So I just want to welcome everybody. I thank everyone for being here. And our next show is with Bridget Danner, who's going to talk about self-care in midlife, and you don't want to miss it. So until next week, everyone, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.